Hello, my friends. Today is a busy day, so lots of Facebook Lives. But remember, today is the second anniversary of Facebook Live, April 6th. And I've been here almost every day for the last 2 years. I want to thank Sheryl Sandberg and Shannon Mattingly and Kaldia Gray for immense support. And thank you for being here every day. We've expanded this conversation. As you know, I'm obsessed with consciousness, and I get to speak to some great people here. And I'm right now in Tucson, Arizona, and we are at the Science of Consciousness meetings, conferences. I had the pleasure of listening to my very special guest, Bruce. Say hi to all these people. They're sending you messages and hearts and likes. So nice. Bruce Damer was at a conference called Science and Non-Duality. He spoke about the origins of life and consciousness there and over here as well. And I thought, why not expose him to all of you who are all over the world watching us right now. So thanks for joining me, Bruce.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you.
So let's start with a little bit about your background. What is your background?
I'm Canadian.
Yes.
Came to the U.S., did a PhD in various computational things, wrote some of the first graphical interfaces on PCs in the 80s.
I see.
Then I started doing virtual worlds, like avatars, not avatars from your culture, but avatars in cyberspace. And then I started doing work for NASA, mission designs, simulations, asteroid missions, human landers, things like that, and Mars program. And then I got to my dream that I had when I was 14, which is to work on the origin of life. So when I was 14, I had a thought experiment, I had a vision, kind of like the visions you have. Of the first self-assembling molecules. And I questioned them, but then they questioned me on how to figure out how they made a copy of themselves. And they challenged me when I was 14.
So these were spontaneous visions?
A spontaneous vision.
No hallucinogens or LSD, just spontaneous?
Yeah, just intention. Just
self-assembling molecules, you mean DNA?
I don't know. They were very diffuse. I had just read an article about Albert Einstein, how he had these beautiful visions of running alongside beams of light when he was 16, and watching the compression and everything, and it led to special relativity. So I thought that's how science was done.
Yeah. Science, by the way, I mean, it's interesting that we call this the science of consciousness. We used to call it toward science of consciousness. Right. But science is in consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Well, all the scientific modeling is done in consciousness.
Yeah. And if your instrument is not tuned, it's not wide enough. This is why I really connect in with some of your thinking, because you're trying to stretch, like the meditation you did this morning, allowed me to stretch my consciousness to create the observer and then dissolve the observer. It was just really wonderful. And then the most special thing for me was the little delay in who am I? Who am I? Because that gives us access to the big field. And that was just a beautiful
thank you.
technique. Thank you.
But let's now talk about your work. Let us all be educated on what your theories are about the origins of life and consciousness.
Well, I can start with where it ended up. We can hold this up for the viewers. You can hold it up.
So this is Scientific American, the great eclipse of 2017. The issue is called The New Origins of Life. Did volcanic hot springs harbor the first living organisms? So a long time I read that the first living organisms were called the first living organisms were called chemolitho-autotrophic hyperthermophiles, right?
Yeah.
These microorganisms on the rims of volcanoes.
Yeah, so here's actual model. Everybody can see that. And I can send it out. And this is the 7 stages to the origin of life, starting with what Deepak just said, ending up in the cycling pool generates those chemical feeding simple protocells. There they are. going through wet, dry, and moist cycles, like a bathtub filling and drying. And we do this in the lab now. It's empirical, it works.
Mm-hmm.
So we grow polymers
Mm-hmm.
without enzymes, right? So it's nature's way of creating random polymers to then select from, like a random sequence library, is to dry things down until they click together, click, 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 click.
Mm-hmm.
Water leaves, and then you form RNA, even DNA, and peptides. And if you have like a soapy kind of fatty acid lipid in there, which is what we're made of, we're bags of lipid. You know, lipid health is a big deal, right, in body health. They form these membranes that sort of go down to the bottom of the pool, and then they stack everything together between layers in a liquid crystal. And then that starts to sort of move around, water leaves, and you get these fantastic libraries of polymers.
So all this was self-organizing?
Self-organizing.
Self-organizing, also self-regulating in a way, self-correcting in a way.
Driven by the big cycle. This is why I brought this Dorja. Driven by the big cycling system, which is the turning of the planet into the sun and then going into the dark.
So does everyone know what a Dorja is? A Dorja is a Tibetan instrument that's used as a vehicle for meditation.
Yes, yeah.
And so you're seeing a connection between this symbol and the self-organizing principles in the cosmos.
Yeah, like Fritjof Capra, when he saw the Tao in the spinning particles. Remember in his book?
Yeah, yeah.
I see this in the cycling upon cycling upon cycling. We're actually seeing chemically. And when I do my thought experiments out into when cells get more complicated, and then learn to divide. So that's what I'm working on now, is the path from the simplest little protocell to the dividing living cell.
So all the way from those microorganisms, the chemolithotrophic hypothermophiles, to Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you something very controversial. With everything that you've learned about cosmic evolution, because it is cosmic evolution,
it's a piece of it,
yeah, and everything then that's followed since then, biological evolution. How and this is a hard, kind of controversial question. How wedded are you to the conventional model of random mutations and natural selection that is now basically the Bible of science?
I live in two magisteria, you know, the term, the dual magisteria. I live in both. And Deepak, what I try to do is I try to walk the liminal ridge between these magisteria. So part of my practice is going down into the pure mechanical reductionist world, because I'm a gearhead. You know, as a kid I was.
Sure.
I want to find solutions that work, and, you know, I wrote a lot of software and everything. But I realized that you can't you can't solve the big problems without going into the magic, the magisteria of magic, and then connecting with the field, this large field, which is where you were. This is where you dwell, and where your inquiry is. So,
but our reductionist inquiry is a modeling of a mode of knowing and experience in human consciousness. Would you agree? It's a modeling.
I think it's a dance, because I asked a question once: how is reality created? And the voice came back. You can appreciate this. I was bumped in the leg, and the voice came to me: get up, stop thinking, and start moving. And as soon as I went into a dance, I went into a circular dance, and the answer was, you can't know it, but you can become it. Yeah. And in some sense, that was the perfect marriage of the two magisteria.
Being and becoming.
Being and becoming by moving. Because the answer to my inquiry on what makes the cosmos was a continuous cycling, beautiful system, and everything. So when I was doing the dance, when I was spinning, everything was spinning. It was very much like Fritjof Capra, you know. But with my body. So as my body spun faster and faster, I had more and more becoming. Not necessarily knowing, but absolutely every cell becoming. Yeah.
It's the Sufi way of transcending what we call separation in a way,
Yeah.
right? The Sufis dance till they go into this ecstatic state where
separation's the
separation
great
is
tragedy
gone.
of it's the great tragedy of our world.
Yeah,
The
which is creating
separation.
all the suffering in the world right
Oh,
now.
it's terrible.
So you have this that other piece of rock that you
can
showed
maybe
me.
share with them.
So what is this, Bruce?
This is ground evidence of our oldest ancestors. So if you see these beautiful little ridges here, see it there, those ridges are stromatolites. They're laid down by microbial mats over 3 billion years ago. And this was picked up on our field season in Northwest Australia, which is a little surviving piece of the Archean crust, the oldest intact crust. And our colleagues discovered evidence for a hot spring there.
In Australia?
Yeah,
this place.
3.5 billion year old hot spring in Australia. And that's the subject of, so the Scientific American article has our complete cycling model and landscape.
You can find this online, I'm sure, this issue, right? Which issue of this?
It's the August issue, and there's the hot spring stromatolite, and that circular little contusion, that's possibly an air bubble, oxygen bubble, the breath of life. That's the earliest evidence, potentially, of oxygen production by biofilms and the oldest evidence on Earth. So that's the breath of life. It's putting the oxygen in to the atmosphere and to the ocean so that it rusts all this iron out. So Deepak is holding something that's quite heavy and massive.
Very heavy.
It's
Yeah,
full
it's
of
very
iron, full of iron.
Mm-hmm.
And that iron has to be oxidized out for 3 billion years before we can get breathable air.
And that iron was originally in the crucible of a burning star, a supernova, and that iron is right now in your hemoglobin going to your brain so you can enjoy this conversation.
Yeah.
It's kind of the unbelievable inseparability of existence. Are we stardust beings having a human experience?
Or are
we human beings having the experience of the universe?
Or
are we the sentience in which all forms of knowing occur in every species of consciousness?
And I'll add one more, because those are beautiful. I find that in meditative states, I can achieve that union if I do the following. If I drop my consciousness, my mind, drop it down. This. And then I go out. Now I open my awareness, expand, And then with a heart, open-hearted awareness. Open heart. Like this. And then turn around. Look back. And there's just a little, wink of it. Union. Union.
Unity consciousness.
A wholeness starts to emerge. And as we train ourselves in these practices, that wholeness, I think, just starts expanding. In a room full of people, as you know, that when that unity, when that wholeness starts to grow, everyone is like, just sweeps them up.
Yes.
Because the group is the thing nowadays, right? Group energy, group field, which is what you've done for decades. But I'm in an energy healing program or practice now. So I'm learning all these skills to heal childhood trauma, for example. That's what we're focused on. The 7 or 8 character styles of trauma.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is a huge, actually, it ultimately is all the suffering in the world. It goes back to childhood, right?
It does, yeah. Like my suffering in my childhood, I found it. It took half my lifetime. I was adopted at birth, and through practices, intense practices, I was able to relive my conception all the way and feel my mother's love in her womb for the first time because I was given up.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt a mother's love. Can you imagine?
Mm.
Yeah. And at 4 months, so I'm growing, I'm a thing, I'm embryonic, I'm in utero. And then through this practice, this very deep practice, I heard a whispering, and I looked out into the night, and I saw an outline of two people, and it was my parents giving me up. I didn't understand the whispers, but then the love connection went away. Oh, it was intense.
It's amazing to me that you can straddle these two worlds. The world of the mystical mystery, the majesty of the mystery, and then break it down to the reductionist worldview of science.
I'm trying, Deepak.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it.
So where is consciousness?
Whoa.
Does consciousness have an origin, or is it the ontological primitive in which evolution takes place?
If we believe in history and time, and we project back, if we believe that history is real and is there something other than the present, we can create all kinds of models.
Which is what we're doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally.
Totally. So if we set ourselves in the now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, our fellows tell us that we should,
Mm-hmm.
there's just this.
All experiences now.
All experiences now. But when I touch this,
Mm-hmm.
when I touch this,
Billions of years old.
Yeah, something is coming through this.
Mm-hmm.
So what I decided to do, and this is what I did in the talk yesterday, I said, what if, you know, the practice that I had done, where I went into open-hearted awareness and then awareness, consciousness, becoming conscious of itself, because I think only consciousness can know itself.
That's right.
And this is where a lot of the speakers are off, because they go into abstract thought and then even more abstract thought and point it back at consciousness. But their abstract thought is far too simple to address consciousness. So unless they're coming from a fully embodied conscious state and then asking from that state, they're disconnected, they're dissociated from the question itself.
The mystery deepens, though, you know, the more you know scientifically, the more kind of mysterious it gets. Matter, for example, which is very real, right? This is real experience.
Real.
It's
Yeah.
heavy,
It's heavy.
it's hard, but it's an experience too. And the experience is very ephemeral. It's a sensation in consciousness, reified as the world. As soon as you give a name to an experience, you create the notion of an objective world.
Right, precisely.
Right? Just giving name. But this, as a rock, is a solid piece of matter.
Yeah.
As a process, it's all the quantum stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's probability waves
Yeah.
in a huge void.
So I can show you a practice I do
Yeah.
with this. So if I do this, so when I was given up in utero, what I think happened, I mean, you could give me an analysis. My consciousness started looking for love. The love dropped, and it started seeking everywhere, and it learned how to realm, how to travel. And so when I came out, I was two things. I was a capsule, because I had to build a capsule protection around myself, but I was an inquiry too. So in the crib, I remember going out of the hospital, spiraling out and up to the limb of the earth when I was in the adoption ward. That came back, and it's like, so I had a realming mind, but a very closed container. So I was practically autistic. So when my adoptive parents took me home, I was like, my mother said, he's in his own world.
Yeah.
But this is the 60s, and they don't even have a diagnosis for autism at the time. So luckily for me, I didn't get treated as a patient. So all through my life, I had to break out of that egg. But my consciousness was already traveling everywhere.
Yeah, I would think, actually, as I'm listening to you, I think of Stephen Hawking, who's kind of locked into this body, couldn't even move his eyelids, had to work through a computer, yet his consciousness was
Wow.
accessing black holes and
Yeah.
singularities.
Yeah, amazing.
And space-time
Did you see
and
that
gravity.
Cambridge video
Yeah.
on his death where they show him in the wheelchair traveling
That's
through
right.
the cosmos?
Through the cosmos.
It was such a beautiful.
Yeah, but your experience sounds pretty similar.
So what I do with this, so I hold this and feel the weight of it. And then I let my consciousness go back to the Hadean or the Archean, into the pools where this arose. And a heart connection, I feel those progeneans, the progenotes, the earliest, most fragile Buddha. And I feel hope for them because it's difficult. Because they're rising and failing. It's the time of hungry ghosts. Progenote colonies would start and fail, come almost into some of awareness, almost functional, and then
Almost
fall
like
back.
an experiment, huh?
All, trillions of them. So our ancestry, our very basis, is this foundation. Think of a nail bed with the nails sticking up, and everything's a failure except for one that supports the next level.
That's right.
Oh, our ancestors. So this is what it took for you to survive in the Hadean and to get to protocellular division and get to robustness, and whoa. Then there's a feeling, there's a embodied feeling, not just of gratitude for being here.
Existence, just existence.
Just as existence, like this is what it takes against the background of the torrent of physics. As I'm on the Mars landing site selection for the next rover, and we look at the conditions on Mars, I'm like, whoa, Mars went out of the habitable zone 1 billion years in, and it just died horribly. Venus went out, it died horribly. The oceans went into the atmosphere, and then...
So we are in what is usually referred to the Goldilocks zone, right?
Yeah, and
just the right...
And we stayed in it for
biosphere.
so long. Planets don't stay in this zone. In fact, Gaia, before Gaia is born, so Lovelock's concept of Gaia, here's life for 3 billion years attempting to work in this toxic environment to survive and continue to evolve. It freezes over completely, the whole planet. Can you imagine? And then it's reflecting sunlight, so it can't get warm, but volcanoes poke up and melt it. Massive asteroid impacts. All these things, and then suddenly one day there's enough biological matter to control the thermostat. Finally, its temperature was never under control by life, and then life can maintain its Goldilocks conditions. So if there's a big blowout of CO2, it can sequester it, pull it into the plant bodies. So Gaia is born, and we're messing with Gaia right now.
We are messing.
We're messing with
and
Gaia.
The way we are messing could lead to the next extinction.
Yeah, well, did you know, here's a crazy fact. So plant, animal vertebrate biomass, 5,000 BC, 98% of animal biomass, 98% was wild animals and birds and fishes and stuff. We don't include insects, because they're not vertebrates. Guess what it is now?
What is it?
It's completely flipped. So it's 98% livestock, pets, humans. 2% is wild body biomass. 2%.
And this is a perfectly balanced ecosystem in a sense, homeostasis in a biological living planet, right?
Well,
are we the predator then?
What we've done, we're in the Anthropocene, right? So we've gridded the planet, and our cities are new ecosystems.
That's right.
For coyotes and raccoons and certain types of birds. Crows are having a field day. Chickens are the #1 success in the animal kingdom. They started in Southeast Asia, and now there's 1 trillion of them. Because of they're food for us.
Yeah.
But by the rules of, by the measure of the football game of natural selection, they're the winners. Like, they're the dominant species on the planet. A chicken, dominant animal. Probably rats too, but we can't measure those.
Well, I heard once, and I'm not sure if it is true, we're talking about, somebody told me this, that if insects disappeared from this planet, all life would cease in 5 years.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
And if humans disappeared from this planet, then life would flourish in 5 years.
Totally.
So in a way, a permanently victorious species like us
Yeah,
risks its own extinction.
yeah, it does. One of the examples for me is where I live in the California redwoods. Redwoods are the crown species of all trees.
That's right.
They're the most massive, long-lived. They're effectively eternal because they grow new sprouts. But they're so successful that they're going extinct.
Oh my God.
So before even humans came along, redwoods used to be on 6 continents. And their success was built on high energy requirements and water. And guess what? Earth's past middle age. Earth is dying actively right now because the sun's on a heating curve. And now you have these belt deserts, north and south, and you have these terrible ice ages. We're in the late middle age of the planet. And according to Lovelock, we have 100 million years before we cross the Venus terminator and flip to Venus conditions. So Gaia, if Gaia exists, is like, guys...
Terminal patient.
Yeah, the planet isn't. It's nothing to do with greenhouse. We're accelerating it. But it's that stars are on these curves. And we're about to exit the habitable zone. And it will happen rapidly. And it's 100 million years. I mean, don't sell your real estate just yet. But it's a profound thought that we are in the last fraction of a percent of complex life on this world that took 4.5 billion years to arise, and complex life is only a little bump of 2%. And then we go to Venus conditions, and then it's a hothouse with microbes in the crust until the sun consumes the Earth. So in the big picture thing, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility for what we've been given.
Tell me now, what's the focus of your work right now?
It's literally a combination of the science, I call it science and spirit. Because if we have a model for our ancestry, for the gearheads on the planet.
Without a single break in the chain of being, right? From the first living organism to right this moment?
No, there's no break.
Except
in the Progenean where there's false starts constantly.
I see.
Yeah, there's this prickly, difficult period. So my goal is, from when I was 14 and I had this vision, I had no idea. I thought that in my 50s I would actually have enough collaborations and enough experience and enough miracles and probability would shape that it would be, a solution would rise, and it did in my 50s. And the rest of my life, Deepak, is going into the field, doing the chemistry and hydrothermal systems, supporting the empirical science as best I can, raising money, hopefully, for our institute so we can fund all these researchers. And then coming to places like this and meeting people like you to bring you this news.
Well, I'm now 71 and I'm trying to put together collaborative initiatives with people like you, but also hardcore reductionists, philosophers, artists, musicians. I think if we... One disadvantage of being a specialist is you have no idea what's happening outside your field. But you put people from disparate disciplines together, you keep a system open and transparent, and you incubate together, emergence happens.
Emergence happens.
Happens. Yeah. So what is your hope for the future with your work?
With my work, here it is. Survival of the fittest, a term that was sort of browbeaten by Spencer, so that Darwin included it in replacement of the much more neutral natural selection in the later editions of Origin of Species. He didn't like it. It's a very Victorian idea. It led to terrible social Darwinism and problems in India, everywhere, in the colonial world, everywhere. Survival of the fittest, because it's a separation. It's a statement of separation. It led to all kinds of bad behavior. We can roll this out of our culture now.
Survival of the wisest becomes the new criterion for evolution?
No, here it is. It's even more simple. In our model, which could be proven chemically, there was never a single individual at the origin. It was a community. It was a mass of simpler protocells cooperating. It was the only plausible way. So the unit of evolution is a community that collaborates, not individuals in competition. Eventually you do get, humans compete, but we're actually mostly collaborative. Our cities are collaborative creations. So the ancestor is a collaborative community, and that can roll into our entire.
The collaborative community in the one mind, in the one consciousness, or
I think.
how do you think of it?
Well,
are we kind of differentiated from a single
we are an outgrowth.
unified?
We are an outgrowth and deeply connected into a massive network. So this goes back to your original question. So I would say what we've found is the actual physico-chemical basis for the thing that supports the conscious field in total unity. And it's based upon sharing and collaboration and the most powerful force in the universe, the ability to shape future probability, which life is really good at and physics is not good at. So in 13 billion years of cosmic evolution, if you took the universe and gave it a grade, it would get a C. Because it's like, 13 billion years, you just produced these types of stars and this periodic table and a bunch of minerals and dust. You're not very productive because it's a two-phase cycling thing. But when life comes in, there's memory. And then you have emergence possible.
Where is the memory?
It's everywhere. So it can start, for the gearheads among us, it starts with short little Legos of templates, polymer templates, which are still running in our bodies. But then information is everywhere. So what we're doing here and what we're doing with the audience, we're crowding ourselves together so that we increase the probability of miraculous things. Then we're communicating about it. Then we make a memory. We're making this recording. And then others take this recording and they evolve further. And that's the proposal I made yesterday.
Which is emergence, isn't it?
That these are the three cycling things that drive emergence. Probability drives interconnection, interactivity, which drives the writing of memory, which drives more probability.
And is it all spontaneous, self-organizing?
It's this. It's this. Cycles, turning and turning and turning and turning.
Cycles of time.
Cycles of time.
In the
matter,
timeless.
in the timeless, yeah.
Cycles of time in the timeless.
Yes, beautifully said.
So Bruce, do you get a lot of backlash from reductionists, materialists?
Not particularly,
because
no.
you're very comfortable there.
Yeah, if I'm in front of that audience, I wear a different outfit and I use different language.
That's right.
I reskin, because part of my training, Deepak, is because I can realm. My consciousness can realm. Like the other night, I was feeling you. I was feeling your system to get to know you. And then we met at dinner last night.
That's right.
And it was a beautiful connection.
It was great.
It was great, yeah.
Okay,
so if you're in a reductionist audience, what you do is you load their OS and become them. Because they're expecting a certain level of discourse.
Yeah, otherwise you're not communicating.
You're not communicating. And you're a realm person too. I mean, I watched...
Yeah, but I get a lot of backlash.
But
strict reductionist physicalists, I get a lot of backlash.
But where it counts in your individual relationship with people, I watched the line after your talk.
Yeah.
And every person that was coming up, your system was completely coming out to meet them.
Yeah,
you were giving them full attention.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Well, it feels good to be connected.
Yeah.
What will we find if we go to your website?
It's a sort of a Wikipedia. I don't even have a Wikipedia entry, but it's a Wikipedia style thing. A picture of me in a suit and a picture of me in festival performance gear, so you can see the variations. A link to the Levity Zone podcast, which is my personal diary, which I'm hoping more people listen to.
I will. I'm going to become a fan. So there's a lot of room for us to collaborate as the next few years unroll. I'm focusing on creating this collaborative...
Around emergence, right?
Around emergence globally.
Globally,
with a lot of help from philanthropists and other people who want to see emergence accelerated in a way.
Yeah.
And
that's
I think
a beautiful
that's
mission.
To
that's great.
Have that emergence accelerate, we need people.
It's an emergency.
Yeah, or else we're doomed. So please check out the website. That's damer.com.
Damer.com, D-A-M-E-R.
Yeah, it's right here. And this will be, of course, online now, and I'll tweet the link, and we'll continue this conversation. It's been a very enlightening experience for me.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
very grateful that you dropped by to have this conversation.
No, I'm honored.
And
Thank
now
you.
this conversation is going global. So
Hello.
thanks to our supporters, it is going global, and thanks to all of you. So until next time, thank you. And Bruce, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Blessings.
Blessings.
Yeah.